everybody, and welcome to Flark's first ever top 10 list brought to this channel. Except there are 7 items, so it is a top 7 list, but that is okay. The category still stands. In this countdown, we'll be looking at most common DK mistakes in PvP that we all make, including myself, very frequently. They're easy to make. That's why this is the most common. It was hard narrowing down this list. There are a few more things I wanted to put on there. There's still so many common mistakes out there that are left off this list. And to be fair, ordering it didn't make a lot of sense, but god damn it, I wanted to make a top 10 list, top 7 list. So I did. You'll see gameplay and clips and highlights going through as I commentate over each item in the list. That will kind of highlight what happens when we avoid those mistakes and are able to make the good play that we want to make. Should be a lot of fun. All the gameplay is Unholy because that is how I was going to be able to fetch the data. I had to stream for 5 to 8 hours with one person to get synergy so we could see all the situations that I could possibly have to make this countdown. It's not easy to get every situation to occur in just regular gameplay. That said, I'll be talking a lot about Frost. In the meantime, again, it's all Unholy gameplay, 3v3 and a couple 2v2, but it should highlight a lot of what I'm talking about while we're going through the countdown. And of course, I'll make notes about Frost gameplay as I go. But without further ado, here's my first ever top 7 list ever. Let's do it.
Number 7, Chains of Ice. Chains of Ice is an ability most DKs know very well. It is a 70% slow, undispellable, and has a 30-yard range while costing only a small amount of your resources. The effectiveness of Chains is pretty clear. So why is it on this list? Most DKs tend to use this spell reactively, as in when the enemy has started to kite, they use Chains, or when they're about to die, they use Chains. However, you'll notice most high-end players applying Chains proactively. Before they even engage on their initial target, Chains of Ice will be pressed. Chains will be kept on the melee before they need to kite. Chains will be kept on the healer before the opening burst. Chains will be kept on the mage before he starts to play defensive. And Chains will be used to peel before your healer dies. Using Chains before any of your other globals, with an even higher priority than your damage, is something newer DKs may miss. Because of how difficult it is to shake the effect, the high movement impairment, and it can't be dispelled, you'll fairly immediately feel the effects of using this spell before you feel you have to. The clips shown here in the video will highlight just how disruptive Chains can be in an opener. The uptime generated far outweighs the rune cost, and most classes simply don't have a tool in their kit to deal with it. Even if they do, it can be once again applied proactively, continuing the pressure for little cost. Like I said already, most DKs already know the latent power within the spell Chains of Ice, which is why it only takes 7 on this list. But not all players, especially newer players, know the usage timing that can push the spell over the top. So hopefully you'll be able to make the adjustments that help you eliminate some of the mistakes associated with number 7 on this list, Chains of Ice. Oh, wait a minute, I remember this game. Dude, seriously. I mean, fuck Demon Hunters, right? What kind of game design has them scale up with power based on how many people they're 1vxing? I mean, I know it's low MMR, and we were just messing around for certain clips here to get footage, but they got a Death Strike, and DH Leech is still okay. We're gonna move on here. Number 7, Chains of Ice. Let's go to the next one. Number 6, Raise Abomination. Ray's Abomination was a huge pressure point in my first Coach Flarkness video, and for a good reason. The ability has a very unique toolkit attached to it because of its janky mechanics. Ray's A-Bomb is a ground-targeted ability with a difficult-to-predict initial target, melee damage and wound application, and an AoE Virulent Plague application that will hit a player one time, once they're in range of it. The key point here is the aura surrounding the chubby dumbass that applies your plague. The radius for this is deceptively large, much larger than the green circular icon that appears when you go to summon him. Because of this, you can use A-Bomb in some pretty powerful and unique ways. Dropping this down near any visible player will all but guarantee combat, preventing saps against any rogue team. Not only that, the massive aura that extends beyond the circle will immediately both pull out any stealthed players and apply your disease to them, making sure they stay out. But it even goes a step further. Even when you're already engaged in combat with your A-Bomb out, doing your rotation, if any stealth players come in contact with that area, they're still pulled out. This makes Ray's A-Bomb one of the most powerful opener disruption tools in the game. Most DKs know the damage it can do because of wound generation, even after all the nerfs it's received, but the true kit of A-Bomb extends far beyond damage. Try it next time against Rogue Mage, Rogue Hunter, Rogue anything, Boomkins, Druids. Are Druids? There's a lot of value there. As we move along this list, we'll start to see how the unique and disruptive toolkit of DK allows them to be much more than just high damage with low mobility, when played correctly. Ray's A-Bomb is a perfect demonstration of how the obvious or apparent value of a spell is definitely not all there is to it. And we'll move on to the next one. Oh wait, is this? Okay, this is the game. After I pull the Druid or Mage or Rogue out or some combination of all three, I don't actually do anything. I'm pretty sure my Enhancement Shaman just solos all three of them. Yeah, this one's pretty funny. Number 5. AMS. AntiMagic Shell has so many use cases baked into such an iconic Death Knight ability. Honestly, I wanted to put this higher on the list, but it's been such an integral part of DK gameplay since the class was released, so I'm hoping a lot of people have caught on to some of its nuances. AntiMagic Shell's primary usage, obviously, is to prevent a good deal of magic damage. However, its secondary use of preventing magic effects does so much more than that. The prevention of magical debuffs or effects does not count toward any absorption on the spell, allowing you to essentially prevent an endless number until the spell runs out of time, in anywhere from 5 to 11 seconds, depending on if you're Unholy or Frost and have Runic Barrier or not. This covers such a wide range of tech play, it's impossible to cover it all in one segment. You can prevent Maledict application, stop all forms of magical CC from Roots to Polymorphs, Hexes, Fears, Hodge, Chaos Nova, Chains of Ice. It stops Poisons application, including utility poisons like Crippling or Wound Poison, or the Vendetta damage trait. It stops Dot application from Aflocks or Fire Mages. You see where I'm going with this? It catches so many debuffs in the game that it saves you so much more than the percentage of your health bar that it absorbs. It feels more like an immunity than a shield. So, I hope it's pretty clear where this is leading to. Using AMS aggressively, or in different ways than just while taking magic damage, is huge. If you're not the target, you can stop an incoming mind control, polymorph, or any of these effects to stay actively dealing pressure. If you see the healing absorb from a Maledict, you can AMS and prevent the effect from ticking again. Like I said, going over AMS would require its own video, but a decade of experimentation should have a lot of this already buzzing through DK's brains everywhere. Just watch as many streams as you can and try and get a feel for how this massively multifaceted ability can be used, situationally. Number 4. AMZ. AntiMagic Zone goes through massive use case changes with every new expansion. The jarring CD front-loaded gameplay of BFA took me by surprise too, causing me to be guilty of almost every mistake I'm about to mention myself. AntiMagic Zone needs to be paired against the win condition of the other team. However, that win condition changes with the evolution of class design and the evolving meta of the game. As of recording this in BFA, we have some well-established win conditions. Rogue Mage can win in Kidney Combust or Kidney Vendetta. Mage Lock can win in Infernal Dark Soul. Ellie Spellcleaves can win with the Blood of the Enemy Swifty one-shot. Because these are the win conditions of the enemy team, AntiMagic Zone needs to be pressed during these cooldowns on the target they're attacking. The caveat? That means it has to be pressed. If you root it just out of range, at the last 2 seconds of a poly or sitting a half Hodge, you need to Trinket or Icebound Fort and immediately AMZ. No questions asked. This is a mistake I was guilty of. Trinketing 2 seconds of a poly in Legion would have been a death sentence. Now, it's a necessity. Learning how to use AMZ is learning the win conditions of each team. If the game is cooldown oriented, you'll have to use your out to get AMZ down. If it's sustain heavy, you'll have to use it during periods where your healer doesn't have CDs to sustain through the rot damage. This is another case where learning the meta, watching streams, and playing games will help you find the right usage of AMZ. The current meta suggests that you do whatever it takes to get it down against those aforementioned comps, but that is certainly subject to change with Shadowlands upon us. So what can you do? Grab the add-on Omnibar and take all the spells off except for the key ones you need to watch to zone. Then practice looking for them while maintaining proper gameplay and using zone the second you see them pressed. You'll eventually get the instinct you need to properly use it. Oh yeah, this game is against good old nefarious Ulan Whisperwind. Yeah, imagine losing to Enhanced DK as Destro S-Priest. I don't even have a Mortal Strike. No synergy at all. Yeah. Well, that's the power of good zones, am I right? Insta-zone those Dark Souls, baby. Yeah, so just go back earlier in this clip and watch through and see where we press zone, and it'll help you set up your Omnibar and what you're actually looking for. Alright, next. Number 3. Setup globals. Like I mentioned earlier, despite the gameplay footage being for Unholy, these tips certainly apply to both specs. Setup globals are very key for getting pressure during your burst windows for both Frost and Unholy. A very common mistake is waiting until you've reached your target or after you've used your stun before pressing abilities like Pillar of Frost, Unholy Frenzy, Dark Transform, or Remorseless Winter. All this does is make it so once you've actually connected or started your go, all you're doing is pressing globals that don't actually do any damage. If instead, you use those abilities on the way to your target, right before a connection or prior to a grip sweep combo, then you'll be bursting during the window you need it the most. You should be pressing abilities like Necro Strike spam, or Chill Streak into Blood of the enemy, not cooldowns that do no damage during these windows. You'll notice in these clips how often I'm using my CDs before I've even made contact with the target. You can pair this with the tips about Chains of Ice too, mind you. Then once the connection is made, all of my setup globals are used, and we can burst immediately, snowballing pressure and putting the enemy team behind. If both teams are trying to do goes, whichever team does it more consistently and sets up more quickly is going to get ahead. This is especially important with Frost, who relies so heavily on the Chill Streak kill window to win games. Definitely watch these clips again. They're pretty fast, but, well, that's kind of the point. These last two are hilarious. The DK we were playing against was actually on my stream while we were recording these. He was none too pleased. And the last one, well, the Mistweaver just dies. Alright, on to the next one. Number 2, Pet Kick. So now we've made it to the second and last Unholy specific entry on our list, Pet Kick. Unholy has always been the DK spec with bigger toolkit and thus a higher skill cap. I bet if anything could take up an entire video, it would be pet management. Hell, I'm not even qualified to make that video, and they keep changing pet management every expansion. Remember Dark Transform into Huddle into Corpse Shield? No? Who cares, it's gone now. That said, one thing always remains through Unholy's iterations, and that's Pet Kick. A bizarre short length lockout with both a positioning requirement for your pet to be out of melee range of your target, and a conditional requirement that your pet must be Dark Transformed. One of the biggest skill shots outside of arguably number 1 on this list, but man is it rewarding when it goes off. Between Kick, Grip, Pet Stun, and then finally Pet Kick, Unholy has enough pseudo lockdown to confirm a kill, even if none of it lasts particularly long. So what's there to say about common mistakes with Pet Kick? I mean, I've made them all myself. Pet movement, knowing what to kick, when can a short lockout with a long CD actually be beneficial? It's a lot of work. It's entirely situational, like most properly made abilities. It can stop a greater pyroblast when no one else on your team has a stop, It can stop at H-Pal's Desperation Holy Light cast to finish a DPS off. It has extremely valuable uses against long casts that deal a punishing blow when stopped, namely Greater Heal from Holy Priest. Gripping, pet stunning, and pet kicking a Greater Heal can essentially lock him out of the game. Practicing this ability takes a lot of time. It's part of Unholy's unique toolkit that makes the skill cap so much higher than Frost, but there can be a lot of value in mastering it, especially when which spec is viable can vary so heavily from season to season. We got some pretty good pet kicks in these clips, but man is it easier at lower MMR, I tell you what. I still need practice. Number 1. Dark Simulacrum. Dark Sim, baby, we're finally here. It's difficult to argue Dark Sim's skill cap, potential value, and insane complexity. Every spell that costs mana is available to be simmed, which gives so many possible uses for this ability. Not only that, the complexity is only increased when the more janky stuff is introduced. For example, if you steal Combustion, it says it increases spell crit chance by 100%. That sounds great for Death Coils or Diseases or Howling Blasts, but the spell itself is coded to only modify certain mage spells since spell crit isn't a stat in the game anymore. Therefore, DKs actually get no use out of it. Knowing what you can sim and what has the most value to sim is another exercise in trial and error, or watching DK streamers using the ability themselves. That said, we all know some of the classics. Polymorph, Fear, Cyclone, Hammer of Justice, Divine Shield, Blessing of Protection. These are all powerful utility abilities, or CC, that you can steal. Furthermore, now that we have percent-based abilities like Life Cocoon and Greater Pyroblast, those have an enormous amount of value when stolen. Instant 150k damage? Yes please. Stealing a 350k plus Absorb Shield? Sure, why not? The complexity in what to sim is one thing, but then actually succeeding in simming is an entirely different story. With casts, it's pretty clear that you will try and use the ability as close to the end of the cast as possible. But with instants, you'll need to do some prediction. Look for panicking monks that are coming out of a stun to use Revival or Life Cocoon, and place it on them right before the stun ends. Watch a paladin running over to your healer and place it on him to steal the Hodge. Use it on an H-Pal that's out of cooldowns right when he starts getting low to steal your own personal bubble. Once again, another ability that might just get its own video in the future, but man, it really does deserve number 1 on this list. Just start playing with the ability and get a feel for the arguably best designed ability in WoW history. There's so much more to say about Dark Sim, but I'll let the rest of these clips play out. I stole a lot of bubbles in this session. It was kind of easy, we were doing so much damage, and I said maybe out of this stun, he's gonna need to bubble, because he's pretty much dead. And then I pressed the ability and took the bubble. And a couple of the times I took the bubble and then just used it on him to showboat because we really didn't actually need the bubble because he was dead anyway. But anyway, as you get used to the ability, you'll find yourself getting more and more value, even at higher MMR. Just try and find a way to play these mind games with your opponent and you'll do just fine.
So there we have it. The top 7 most common mistakes. Some ways to play around it. What it looks like when it goes right. It's some good stuff. We all make these mistakes. Certainly I do. Frequently. It's just part of the game, right? We're all trying to get better. Nobody's perfect. Even the top end players make these mistakes, albeit less frequently. Good for them. They've practiced. It's paid off. But hopefully this gives you some insight and some information on maybe mistakes that you know you're making and how to be a little bit more decisive, or mistakes that you didn't know you were making and now you recognize, hey, I should probably be doing that differently. So again, take the information as you will. I know the order was not particularly meaningful, but screw you. Top 10 video, baby. See you guys in the next one. Peace.